Honorable Ministers, distinguished guests, esteemed speakers, welcome to Doha Forum 2025. I'm Rümeysa, Çodar, news reporter from TRT World. It's my great pleasure to be here today and of course to share this stage with the distinguished speakers on this panel that will delve into the details of the restoring dignity in crisis, innovative models for humanitarian and financial collaboration. Well, in this panel, the discussions will go beyond the emergency response because it's also about restoring dignity, strengthening resilience, and creating sustainable pathways for people to rebuild their lives. So we are aiming to look at how financial inclusion can transform humanitarian action and how collaboration across sector can unlock long-term solution for communities in crisis. So before we move on to panel, let's watch a quick session video that highlights the Qatar's commitment to Peace for Dignity initiative and its efforts to uphold human dignity in times of crisis. Let's watch it all together.
The respect of human dignity is one of the main pillars of the principles and objectives of the United Nations. And moving onward, according to our Muslim principles that highlight the dignity of the person, the state of Qatar has translated its engagements on both national and international levels to uphold collective and individual rights and defend human rights in the world. Peace and dignity. Therefore, we have partnerships around a single value. Peace and human dignity. These are partnerships amongst governments and international institutions as well as the private sector that set forth digital smart solutions that are innovative and safeguard human dignity and also uphold peace and prosperity, which also transform war regions into spaces for opportunities and hope. Within conflicts, hope always lurks in the horizon.
Ladies and gentlemen, now it is my great privilege and honor to invite to the stage the Minister of State for International Cooperation, the State of Qatar, Her Excellency, Dr. Maryam bint Ali bin Nasser al-Misnad, to deliver her remarks. With a big round of applause, please join me in welcoming her to the stage.
I'll be delivering my statement in Arabic if you may use your headset.
Your Excellencies, can you hear me? Test, test. Can you hear me? Testing, testing. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, it is my honor to welcome you to this important dialogue on restoring dignity in times of crisis and on the pivotal role of cooperation between the humanitarian, financial, and technological sectors. We meet today with a core belief: crises do not diminish human dignity. Yet, the way we respond to them either protects that dignity or undermines it. Guided by the vision of His Highness Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani, the Emir of the State of Qatar, may God protect him, who affirmed that development is a mission of conscience and humanity before it is a plan of numbers and indicators, a journey towards dignity, not a race for gain. What we are working on today is not merely programs or transactions. It is a humanitarian message through which we restore to individuals their ability to make decisions. Around the world, millions are facing armed conflicts, forced displacement, and escalating climate crises, challenges that greatly strain our ability to meet increasingly complex humanitarian needs. Enabling people to access secure financial and technological solutions, even in the harshest conditions, is, in itself, among the highest forms of preserving human dignity. Therefore, restoring dignity requires us to think beyond traditional frameworks and build innovative partnerships that bring together governments, humanitarian actors, private sector, financial institutions, technology, and telecom sectors. Distinguished guests, this whole brings together actors capable of shaping a different reality, a reality that shifts from relief to investing in people, from short-term aid to long-term empowerment, and from fragmented responses to innovation that truly transforms lives. And above all, we must keep in mind the faces we do not see here today. A family that lost everything in one night, like the mother of Hind Rajab, who lost her daughter while her son Iyad continues to suffer from hunger and lack of medicine in Gaza. A child who struggled against illness and starvation, like Abdullah Abu Zarqa, who died due to severe malnutrition and a critical shortage of medicine and treatment in Gaza as a result of the blockade. These heartbreaking stories represent families and children who are simply searching for a means to live and to live with dignity. They are our compass. They are the purpose behind every policy we design and every innovation we create. We hope that this dialogue will help remove obstacles and lay down practical steps to develop models of humanitarian and financial cooperation that restore people's ability to stand on their feet and plant security and dignity at the heart of crisis-affected communities. Let us work together towards a new model, one where respect is protected, innovation is celebrated, and the human being, not institutions, stands at the center of the humanitarian system. Thank you, and I look forward to a fruitful discussion befitting the magnitude of the cause that brings us together today.
Excellency, as we move on to panel, we'll be diving into why traditional aid models are no longer enough, what innovative financial tools can change the trajectory of the crisis recovery, and how global partnership can reshape the future of humanitarian response. To talk on this, to get more details on this, now I'm so delightful to invite to the stage my distinguished speakers. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming them to the stage one by one. Wesam Hamada, mother of Hind Rajab. Lisa Doughten, Director of Financing and Outreach Division of OCHA. Svyatoslav Senyuta, Vice President and Head of Visa Government Solutions for Central Europe, Middle East and Africa. Skau, Deputy Executive Director and Chief Operating Officer of the World Food Programme, and Malek, Hammoud, Group Chief Investment and Digital Officer at Zain. Please can take your seats.
Thank you.
Distinguished guests, it's a kind reminder for all our non-Arabic speaker participants. One of our speakers will speak in Arabic, so you can please use your simultaneous interpretation headphones. I'd like to thank once again for joining us here in Doha Forum. So delightful to have you all here. So I'm going to begin my discussions with a first-hand perspective from a person who experienced the conflict. So I'm going to begin with Wesam Hamada. Well, Wesam, you have experienced the conflict and the crisis in all its dimensions, ranging from war to fear, from lack of food and medicine to erosion of human dignity. So as a person from your position who witnessed these daily sufferings, so if you had a chance to change just one thing to improve their lives, you are still living with the trauma, living with the realities of war, what would you change if you had the magic wand? So, and what do you expect, what do you wish the decision makers to change to understand the real needs of war, still living with this reality of the war? Please go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Wesam Hamada, mother of Hind Rajab. Today, I carry a suffering that I have never imagined possible. The pain of a mother who lost her daughter and the pain of a mother whose child lives in fear. And when I try to depict this feeling, I have no words because no single language can really showcase how a mother can mourn her daughter and then wait to listen about the news of another child that she doesn't know who might survive till the morning or not. I am not here to relate a personal suffering, but to say that the rights of widows and children are a commitment. The right of children and the right of a widow to dignity are not requests but main rights. What happens is not a personal tragedy but a total fiasco in respecting the human beings, in protecting widows. Widows in Gaza do not live under the burden of the Israeli armed forces, but also from the family and society burdens. They are suffering more than words can say, and this is what motivated me today to seize my silence, because many women are not afraid to have a say and to speak because they are afraid they're behind their dialogue. There are fearful repercussions. Behind these widows are families who are always afraid to have a say, and these widows are always under a lot of burden, under a lot of fear, because they know that their daily survival is not up to them, but maybe sometimes is up to their families. So we have to empower these women economically, because when women are financially autonomous and independent, they can create a whole society, because a woman is the one building children's personalities. They are the ones building households and whole societies. When women are economically empowered, and when women are somewhat owing their life to someone, they will be in a predicament. We should not wait for a woman to always say thank you to her provider. We would like women to be strong so that everyone would really respect and appreciate them, because they are giving everything. Unfortunately, women are completely marginalized, and I speak of women in scenarios of war and conflicts where women are persecuted. I'm not speaking of women in strong economies. I'm speaking of women who are rendered feeble because of wars and armed conflicts. Now, children in these countries do not know why they are deprived of their rights, and women and widows are in a somber situation. People always tell me, may God give you patience, a mother of Hind. I am not undervaluing my suffering or the mourning of my own daughter, but my story might pale in comparison to other stories. A mother losing her child, a mother losing her family, her husband, remains alone and unfortunately is unable to stand on her feet and has to queue in long line to have some food, or may die of hunger in a certain tent. I know a lot of women would queue to receive water tanks or some food aid, but some women might have lost everything, and their dignity would not allow them to stand in this queue, not because they are arrogant, but because they have values and dignities, and there is a minimum level of human dignity that must be taken into account. So when we want to provide assistance, we have to ascertain that this aid would reach the targeted persons. When we receive aid in Gaza, some people might receive 2 or 3 packages in the same day, whereas others do not receive a single package. So we really need to look into the marginalized factions, the women that do not receive a single aid. Help may be provided, so we have to really make sure that this assistance is provided to everyone, not thanks to a small excerpt or video. Some assistance providers would take a video of the people that they are helping, but it's not about videos for specific factions, but we should also provide assistance to widows who are completely dependent on men. So we have to empower them economically. You have asked me if today I have a magic wand to change. What would I do? First of all, I would change how people deal with suffering. I would change the silence that suffocates more than weapons. I would change the cold distance between international decisions and the tears of mothers. Because the world that allows a woman to lose her child in front of her own eyes and to really mourn the fate of another child is a harsh world. The dignity of a child is not a negotiation card, and the tear of a woman does not merely require assistance as a slogan. Before any decision, we should ask ourselves, is this decision safeguarding the human dignity? Because dignity is the only thing that survives. Whatever I say today, I know that women in Gaza are echoing my voice, and every woman bears a piece of suffering, and every child resembles to a child lost, and every other child is a copy of my child, Hind. And this child should not only be a piece of news in the international media. If I have a magic wand, I would not erase wars, though this might be a dream of humanity, but I would use this wand to make the voices of those who suffer as a part to make decisions, to delete suffering, and to sprinkle hope. I would like to unify all of these voices to all women, and we hope that we would be able to create a fund to support women associations in Gaza, because empowering women and having them economically autonomous is extremely paramount, because these women should not need anyone to support them. They would be able to support themselves, to support their families. And one day she will not be forced to listen to something that she does not want. Marry me, do this, do that. She will be her own master. I do not say be rebellious on your in-laws, but be strong, be you, and leave the silence behind. Speak and raise your voice as you are listening to me today.
Thank you so much, Wesam. We heard such a, I think, yes, all these words, of course, deserves a big round of applause, because this is showing us the reality of the war, because we are just seeing what the media outlets shows, but you are the one experienced from the first hand. That was really heartbreaking to hear that the huge widening gap about the resources and the expanded need of the food, the medicine, and the balance, the lack of the balance. This is the key issue that we should raise here on the stage. Thank you so much. I'll get back to that, but first of all, I'd like to hear more on the field, because we have also Lisa Doughten here with us, and she is also working with the displaced and the vulnerable communities on the daily basis. So can you share us a story or an example that highlights how the lack of the financial access affects the lives of people's life, and of course their dignity? This is beyond just the ability of purchase goods.
Yes, thank you very much. And I first wanted to start by thanking you for sharing your story. It's extremely powerful. As a fellow advocate for for women's rights and leadership and empowerment, I want to thank you, especially also as a mother. So thank you so much. So I wanted to connect a little bit to the story, because as we've heard, when you lose your access to banking, to financial resources, or you don't have that, then you're not empowered to do anything. So it's very, very difficult to rise above that. So certainly this initiative that Her Excellency Minister Misnad has envisioned is an amazing opportunity to empower women and others across the globe with this initiative to provide multi-purpose cash and cash otherwise. I think cash allows people to make choices for how they would like to be supported. So it's not up to the international community to determine. It's really up to the local and national and those affected to understand best and say how they would best be supported. So this is why OCHA is part of a coordination mechanism that helps coordinate cash assistance in humanitarian emergencies. So we co-chair that on a global level and support agencies to implement that. And we'll hear in a little bit from Carl Skau, WFP, one of the big implementers of and programmers of multipurpose cash. One of the examples you'd asked I wanted to give is from our, we manage on behalf of the system these country funds that provide funding for different projects, increasingly to local and national partners. We have one, or had one in the Syria cross-border that was providing projects for support for people that were moving into northwest Syria, and we were providing that from Gaziantep over cross-border. And there was, last year, funded by Qatar partially, there was a project for multi-purpose cash and also cash vouchers of about $13 million total. And so the half of it went through sector-specific cash, so that could be for nutrition, for water sanitation, for shelter, and the rest of it was for cash grants, the half of it. And what we saw there is that people were using it for winterization, to buy heat, to buy oil, for whatever they needed to support themselves through the winter, to purchase the fuel, and for those that were returning to purchase the transport, to fund the transportation costs and the resettlement costs that they had. So very important, I think, also cash for work. When cash is provided, then there can be cash for work as well, and cash for small businesses. And just one last quick example, in Cameroon, there was a woman that the team was working with that was displaced by conflict, and she was injured on her when she was fleeing, and she needed to find a way to support her and her 4 children. And so she used one of these cash grants to start up a business of making soap. And so using soap, she was able to fund what she needed most for her children. So again, it was really choosing what she felt she needed most to put her, and ultimately she could pay the school fees for her children to go to school. So just 1 or 2 examples. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Well, actually, she made a significant remark. She just said the winter approaches, and this is bringing us another point that the already well-needed aids will be widened, because the crisis is not only targeting just one region. It's like in almost all geographies, we are seeing that several diverse crises targeting millions of people. So as the winter approaching, that means, again, this is the need for new clothes, again, for need for the fuel and everything. So in that point, I think we should talk about more of the expanding crisis and the huge gap between the available resources. So to talk more on this, I would like to ask Svyatoslav Senyuta, as you are the head of the Visa government investment. So you build global financial network. So what unique role can global payment network can play that local solutions cannot, and what are the limits to your technology without deep local partnerships?
Thank you. And let me first begin with expressing Visa's deepest appreciation for the state of Qatar's leadership and vision in enhancing of the delivery of humanitarian assistance globally. Government of Qatar has consistently demonstrated that innovation, compassion, and strategic investment can go hand in hand. And we are honored and privileged to follow this vision, to collaborate with partners in Qatar and globally who are reimagining the future of the humanitarian assistance. From Visa perspective, our unique contribution comes from our global outreach. Our ability to connect billions of people, economies at a global scale. Today, our network links more than 150 million merchants across the globe. We are connecting more than 15,000 financial institutions in over 200 countries and territories. In times of crisis, this global outreach becomes a lifeline. Once a beneficiary is verified and issued a credential, whether a card, a digital token, or a mobile wallet, they can receive assistance instantly and use it safely, as is designed. Even across the borders, as they can change the countries or when they're being displaced. However, ensuring a global outreach is not enough. Local partnerships are indispensable. The identification of beneficiaries, the nuances of KYC in fragile economies, the integration with local and regional financial and digital ecosystems. This all requires leadership, first and foremost from governments. And we have an amazing, unprecedented example of the government of Qatar, which we praise a lot. Local banks, telecom, NGOs, digital infrastructure providers, we all need to unite to help reimagine the humanitarian aid delivery. Qatar's own commitment to working hand in hand with international organizations, public sector, private sector, is a model on how these partnerships can be done effectively. So Visa brings the rails and the secure trust infrastructure. And the real impact comes when global scale is combined with local insights, humanitarian principles. With that combinations, solutions are becoming not only efficient, but also inclusive and sustainable. Thank you.
Excellent point. Thank you so much. So I would like to shift from global networks to the on-the-ground realities with Carl Skau also here with us. Well, you operate on the ground and understand the regulatory landscape. So what are the two compliance challenges when you serve into the undocumented or the displaced population? And what innovative approaches do you use in order to ease these challenges?
No, thank you. And let me also begin by thanking and recognizing the leadership by Her Excellency the Minister and the State of Qatar for not only contributing to these programs, but also supporting us in being creative and innovative in breaking new grounds on how to do this in a good way. I mean, cash has had an explosive development over the past 15 years. I remember we started back in 2007-8 with some pilots. At the time, we were reaching maybe 1 million people with some $10 million. Right now, we are averaging around 60 million people and around $2 billion. It's about 40 to 50% of what we do, so it's really the main track. You know, 20 years ago, the World Food Program, we're shipping food around the world, but now really cash is the way forward for us. And it's for many reasons. The first is cost effectiveness. I was just in South Sudan, and it costs us, when we do food, around 60 cents to $1 reaches the beneficiary. When we do cash, it's around 80 to 90 cents that reaches, out of $1 that reaches the beneficiary. Second, access. El Fasher was closed off, as you know, for 18 months. The only way that we managed to get through was through some creative cash systems with private retailers. And then finally, of course, dignity. Already now in Gaza, we are providing through what is called an e-wallet support to 250,000 Palestinians, not because we couldn't get them with food, but because it's a way of restoring some normalcy, some dignity when people can go to the market and fend for themselves. So this is really the way forward, but like you point to, there are challenges, and I would like to point to two. The first one is around ID verification, because in many of these fragile contexts, people don't have IDs, or they have lost them because they had to flee quickly their houses, or frankly, they are scared to present them. So in those contexts, we need to be creative. We have launched something we call a fit for purpose model, where we are trying to combine different ways, creative ways. And for example, we're working through biometrics and often combined with community attestation, and through that then being able to verify identification. And that's of course important for us to make sure that we reach the most vulnerable, and that we also avoid duplication, that we can make sure that we can account for the resources. The second is regulatory restrictions, because and it's often linked to the ID management, because to get a SIM card or to get a bank account, you need then to have the basics. And of course, governments have regulations around this, legitimately so, to avoid fraud, terrorism, and so forth. So we're working with government to explore new ways. And so we have something called innovation sandboxes, where we create a controlled environment where we test rules light approaches. If they are working, then we can then scale up. So these are two challenges, if you will, but also ways of how to try to navigate through them. I want to say, though, that ultimately, of course, the objective here is to be able to reach the most vulnerable with the best assistance possible. It is really to bring that agency and dignity that the minister also spoke to in her opening. But ultimately also it is to bring back sustainability. We don't want to continue year after year to support people with humanitarian assistance. We need to break that cycle. And cash, and the way that we provide cash, bringing people onto financial inclusion, has proven to be maybe the most effective way to break that cycle. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Well, all the highlights actually brought us to the point of connect, because connection is the key challenge. Now, you said you're trying to reach the most vulnerable one, the most needed one, but the lack of the idea, the lack of communication, maybe making the situation even harder, because it's the point. I'd like to get more details from, since we have the representative from the Zain Group Chief Investment and Digital Officer. Well, connectivity, as I said before, is the foundation of all what we have so far discussed. So, especially in areas with damaged infrastructure and power, so how we can ensure that reliable, secure access is possible in that area. So, what is the commercial rationale for telecom companies to invest in such high-risk areas?
Thank you, and good afternoon. First of all, it's a pleasure and honor to be part of this global humanitarian initiative, and would like to thank Her Excellency and, of course, the State of Qatar for your leadership, vision, guidance, and, of course, hospitality. As you mentioned, connectivity is the foundation of all, and for us at Zain, we're one of the large telecom operator in the region, operating in 8 countries and serving more than 50 million customers across the region. We had the chance, fortunately and unfortunately, of course, to operate in high-risk environments and conflict areas. It's not a choice, but that's the reality. And of course, it's very difficult, because at the end, if you think about it, we have to put our teams at risk. I can give you a couple of examples. Back in days when Iraq was in tough conditions, we had to send the team to refuel, for example, telecom tower. So imagine the process of sending a team to do that and all the challenges on the ground. In Sudan, for example, in the recent war, we had to relocate the whole team basically because everybody left Khartoum, the capital, and the team had to work remotely. And all of this basically is for a purpose that we need to keep our network up and running. We need to provide the connectivity, because when people are displaced, the only way to reach out to them is via this SIM card, as was mentioned. That's why it's very important for us to focus on these. I don't think we choose to operate in conflict zones again. We look at opportunities, and we're private sector business. We look at opportunities. We look at high risk-reward ratios, and this is part of business as usual. But for us, again, connectivity today is one of the key pillars of any economy, whether it's for individuals or for SMEs, as you mentioned, even governments. We need to make sure that connectivity is everywhere. Because it has a very strong socio-economic and humanitarian purpose and impact, of course. So that's why it's very important for us to make sure that we provide the reach and we have the data to basically build these programs and initiatives.
Thank you so much. You also underlined the connectivity is the key, because we have so far raised the challenges that we already know, that we knew that millions of people, 1.4 billion people, there are still lack of financial access. We knew it. It's the challenge. But I would like to get more details on it, because we have a person lives with these sufferings, still experience these sufferings, because not all the time the challenges, not only conflicts, like reveals itself with the sounds of the conflicts, not the sounds of the strikes, but the poverty, but the crisis, the climate crisis, and the displacement and the forced migration. These are all the challenges that we should also look ahead and to find the permanent, sustainable solutions at least. So I would like to get back to Wesam Hamada, because we already addressed the challenges, but we also need to understand where to start first to rebuild the lives. So based on your experience, rebuilding a new ecosystem is the key. It's the first thing that we should start, but where to start in order to give the people who live in the conflict zone, and in your view, actually, how should international organizations prioritize their financial and social inclusions to help communities to regain their dignity, their stability, and their self-reliance as well?
A camera lens only captures 10% of what is really happening on the ground. When I watch the media outlets and I see the scenarios that they are predicting, they say there's bombarding, there's hunger and famine, but behind all of these stories, they do not really know what's happening. They do not know how many families have been lost, how many houses have been destructed, how many people have remained alive indeed, but they are almost shadows of themselves because they have lost every single member of their families. When we have said we have to empower women economically to rebuild societies, indeed, some ideas are there in Gaza, like the digital wallets, but when we have to rethink projects, we have to understand that there are a lot of accompanying risks. Behind digital wallets, there are many risks. The ID is taken from a woman by changing her photo and by placing the photo of the person who will be receiving the funds. So forgery, document forgery is happening sometimes. In some institutions that are financially supporting or are providing cash, we say in Gaza that this cash is given to the dearest of the dearest. So every person holding this cash would give it to the nearest person to their heart. So sometimes you might read the names of different persons on these cards, but as a person receiving these funds, the aid would be targeting only specific persons, but not the family. I cannot deny the presence of large funding organizations like the state of Qatar. As Hind's mom, as Wesam Hamada, as a mom of 2 children who suffered a lot, I've always dreamt of receiving this assistance, this cash. I was incapable as Wesam to go and queue to wait to receive this aid. I would have never imagined the great burden that I would have to go through to receive this aid. So when I look into these categories that do not receive this aid, so we have to really look into the targeted factions. Gaza needs help. Ever since I have come to Qatar, I have seen to what extent they are generous and welcoming. And in 30 years of my life, I've never seen such warmth and generosity. But as Wesam, I'm not merely speaking as a mom who lost her child. When I'm in Qatar, every time I get the chance to eat, I wish that all women and children in Gaza would also have the opportunity to eat as well as I am. When I look at children playing in Qatar, because Qatar is a beautiful country, innovative country, so when I see these children playing cheerfully, I wonder, where is the childhood in Gaza? Children, unfortunately, are not living I'm not speaking of the biscuit package that they are receiving. How are they living? I would like to speak of an experience that my son Iyad has been through. He has seen a banana in a tree, hung in a tree. And when he saw this banana, he was in a tantrum and he started crying. I would like to have this banana, and I would have never imagined that I would be capable of buying the banana. So I asked the vendor how expensive it is. It's 30 shekel. I don't know what's the exchange rate into dollars, but it means it's very expensive for me. And as a woman, I was completely dependent on my husband. I am educated, but as a woman, like every other woman, I cannot work. I should be a mom in the household, raising my family. I had no right to be economically active. So I would work within my household. I would do some artifacts, make candles and sell them. So I wanted to be somewhat economically active. Speaking of aid again, when we want to provide aid to women, we have to be certain that no family can threaten the rights of these women. When we want to provide assistance to these women, we have also to help those surrounding her so they wouldn't hurt her. When I have decided to establish the financial fund of Hind, we have many financial organizations in Palestine and in Gaza, and usually a fund is provided to these organizations at a very low percentage, maybe 10% or less. And usually women are the most supported in Gaza or even in all war-torn countries. So when we wanted to create this fund, the main idea was to have these funds and to provide these funds to organizations to support them, but with conditions. In order to receive this fund, I have a list of conditions that you have to abide by. In Gaza, suffering is really dire. It's not just words, it's a reality. And now, promises of decision makers cannot bring back Hind to life and cannot reassure my son Iyad, but it can save lives of other children and women. In Gaza and in conflicted areas, we do not ask for miracles. We are merely asking for assistance that would provide widows and children, that would reach these widows and children. So please translate your promises into actions and give hope to those who are merely surviving. Thank you.
Well, translating promises into action, this is the key message and the one of the significant message that we are all actually gathered from diverse countries here in Doha just to do so. Thank you so much. Again, sharp remarks from Wesam Hamada. Well, the reality on the ground is quite fragile because the recent statement from the UN was bringing a new layer of urgency because we heard that the UN Secretary General proposed $577 million budget cut on the UN funding. So since we have the representative from OCHA, Lisa, here, so you directly work with the community, the suffering people who are suffering on the conflict zones. So how do you see that this gap between humanitarian needs and the available resources for further widening? So how do you think that this budget cut will impact the lives of people, especially in the severely restricted areas like Sudan, in Gaza, where access is the key challenge? So what kind of alternative or strategic steps can be taken in order to address this challenge?
Okay, thank you very much. Maybe I'll first start with the needs. Last year about this time, OCHA, on behalf of the humanitarian system, launched the Global Humanitarian Overview. And that consolidates all of the different needs from the different countries that have humanitarian requirements. This was foreseen to be to support 181 million people around the world, and it was to cost $45 billion. So as soon as 2026 rolled around and we had severe cuts to the funding, then we we looked at and we said we have to hyper-prioritize. That means not that the needs are going down, not that fewer people actually need the funding, need the support provided by this funding, but that we needed to really go to the ones that were most vulnerable, most prioritized, the most in need. That was a very difficult process, but it's something that was launched called the Humanitarian Reset. So that's specifically looking at how do we deliver better for the 114 million people that have been prioritized under this focused effort. How do we define that? How do we deliver? And part of what we're talking about is increasing the use of multi-purpose cash. That is one way to make it more cost-effective. I think it was Carl that said that the price of providing a digital wallet is far less than it is to provide food or shelter, in-kind assistance. So it's really looking at how do we deliver in a much more cost-effective way, reducing the bureaucracy, reducing the layers that are there as well. And then how do we devolve it to the communities? That's really getting the assistance to local and national partners and to the people as quickly and as easily as possible with the fewest layers possible. And then, of course, defend. We have to defend the international humanitarian law and international human rights, because we see that as under stress at every moment. I think in terms of, there's also an initiative that the Secretary General launched called UN80. And this is where both the development and humanitarian are looking at ways to make assistance, development assistance and humanitarian assistance much more efficient and effective. And so under the humanitarian area, there's a new humanitarian compact, which is looking to see how do we make it more efficient by making common platforms for logistics, for procurement, for common fleet, to make sure we're all operating as one and we're not duplicating effort, we're identifying the gaps and filling those gaps. So that's one way, is to make it much more efficient by working together as a humanitarian community.
Thank you so much. When it comes to these gap, so can Visa play a pivotal role in bridging the gap in the humanitarian aid and financial inclusion? So what role can corporate financial solution and public-private partnerships play in closing this funding gap?
Thank you. I think when we are looking at the process of humanitarian assistance delivery, one of the most powerful tools, which is not yet fully leveraged today, is a financial inclusion. As a part of the crisis response specifically, when assistance is delivered digitally and is designed with inclusion at the outset, effectively we are triggering three core consequences. So the first one, we are establishing a verified financial relationship at the moment of need with the beneficiary. And this secure authentication, it becomes the first building block of the person's financial identity, which is essential for accessing financial services. Second, you connect individuals to a broader economy, not just a one-time aid. And this is very important, because we are including a person not just into a broader economy, when a person can, with dignity, participate fully in the economic life. People can store value in a safe manner, in a secure manner. They spend in local market. They engage with various digital services which are available that enhance resilience of such people and their dignity as well. Third, which is also a very important element, is that we are enabling more direct and lower cost funding routes. When donors can disburse directly into beneficiaries' accounts or wallets with fewer intermediaries, reducing friction and operational cost. And this is precisely where public-private partnerships become powerful, because the private sector can contribute technology, interoperability, and speed. The humanitarian sector is bringing contextual expertise and principled actions. Qatar has championed this model, and we at Visa, we are very proud to support such a forward-looking approach. Scalable models are already emerging, and we are talking about shared registries of beneficiaries, which will streamline the process of humanitarian assistance delivery. We are talking about tokenization of payment credentials which are provided and making this process fully digital. And people will be able to enjoy not only the access to financial services, but also multiple access to other digital services which are critical for supporting life in, in its fullness. Those people cannot be excluded from the global ecosystem. On the contrary, it's our task to support them, to include them, and to help them restore their normal lives. I think all these innovations we are talking today, they are ensuring economic participation of people, right, in their normal lives. And they will reduce their dependency, and I think that we've heard a lot about it today. They will reinforce dignity, and they will position people to rebuild their lives with agency. Well, actually, integrating financial inclusion into humanitarian response is not already an option. I think it's an imperative today. And with the leadership of countries like Qatar, who are championing and pioneering this approach, we can accelerate global shift to reimagine aid models, to make them more direct, more impactful, more inclusive, and empower people. And I think that this is the objective which all of us are striving for today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was very insightful to hear from you. Well, we also hear the real challenges on the ground from Wesam Hamada's insights. So I'd like to start with Carl and then to Malek, the same question. So after you're hearing these real challenges on the ground in Gaza, so what will be the first priority that we want to focus as a World Food Programme?
I really want to thank Wesam for sharing that feedback and also the challenges to the e-wallet program we have in Gaza. We're well aware. I mean, to begin with, cash is the most powerful gender empowerment, women's empowerment tool that we have in humanitarian response. But we're also aware that if not used right, it can also put women at risk. And of course, like you alluded to, there is always creative ways for men to get their hands on that cash as well. So we need always to have feedback mechanisms and to monitor our programs to ensure that it really promotes that agency, that dignity, and for sure does not put anyone at risk. So how we do that is that we constantly monitor and we constantly manage to get feedback from women, including in their own households, if they are not able to come to our distribution points. But I wanted to also comment on this gap that we see. You know, we estimate this year that there are some 300 million acutely food insecure in the world. I mean, if that was a country, it's a massive, massive country. So the task is great. Resources are coming down. At WFP, we have lost some 40% of our resource base this year. So how do we manage this growing gap? I mean, one is through efficiency for sure. And here, cash is a solution, as I alluded to. It's the most efficient and effective way, and so that tightens that gap one bit. The second is that we need to break these cycles of dependency that I spoke to. We need to push back on these needs. We need to promote sustainable solutions. And so we are working to promote, to restore food value chain. For example, now in Syria, to get bakeries back from getting the inputs to be selling their breads on the market. So food value chains is one. Second is productivity. In Sudan right now, including in Darfur, there are areas where you can support farmers to get back on their land. And when we do that with irrigation systems, with some inputs, you get food production up and you get prices down. So with the cash in Khartoum, people can get further because there is food on the market to more reasonable prices. And finally, of course, the financial solutions to help not least smallholder farmer women to have bank accounts to be able to save, to get insurances. So these are all measures to kind of make programs more sustainable and break that cycle. Finally is, of course, to try to mobilize more money. And I think one way to do that is to show what works and how we can break these cycles of dependency. And here, the data evidence is, of course, important, but also to be able to do new try new things. And here we're excited to really partner with Qatar on the peace card. We are ready to begin implementing. We use our presence out in the field, on the front line, to test new ways, and we are confident that through this we will also be able to demonstrate what works and hopefully bring more donors on board for these kinds of programs. Thank you.
Very strong remarks from Carl. Finally, thank you so much. And the same question to Malek as well, after hearing from Hamada the real challenges and the real suffering still alive in there. So what will be the main priorities of the telecommunication companies you represented?
Sure. So again, I'll collect basically all the comments that were shared with us. But what we've done as a telecom operator, because we have the reach over the past 7-8 years, we have basically built mobile money services in all the markets where we operate. And over the years, we've been working very closely with WFP, with the UNHCR, with OCHA, on basically connecting and reaching out to the displaced and people in need. In Iraq, for example, we managed to reach out to more than 1.5 million people. In Jordan, we're supporting the Syrian refugees, also with WFP. In Sudan, we've been working very closely with everybody because, again, the amount of displaced people in Sudan was big. You're talking of more than 10 million people had to move around. So it's really using technology, working closely with these organizations, making sure that we try to reach to the right people. But I'd like to take your comment by heart, because at the end of the day, as you mentioned, we need to make sure that we are reaching to the right people and to really people in need. And this is where this partnership model, whether the private sector, whether it's us on the telecom side or the mobile money, companies like Visa who have a global approach, but we need to really localize. How do we go to market on the ground? How do we support people? And of course, we need to work under the supervision of your organizations. And again, we have lots of work to be done. We need to focus on really creating the right incentives, like KPIs, to be able to deliver basically the vision that Her Excellency has spoken of in the opening speech.
Thank you so much. We got the final remarks from Malek, Hammoud, and that brings us to the end of our scheduled time. Ladies and gentlemen, so far, too much has been said here. We first of all heard from Wesam Hamada, the real face of war, the suffering in Gaza, and then from Lisa and Carl representing UN. They have also mentioned about the human cost of the financial exclusion. And then we heard from the technology and financial sectors. They have also mentioned about their huge potential to bridge this gap. But the conversation didn't end here. I hope all the message that we have shared during this panel will resonate beyond this hall, beyond Qatar, and that will go to across the world, that will inspire change, and finally we could build a pathway to rebuild the lives of the people still live with the realities of war, realities of the trauma. Thank you all so much for being with us, and please join me with a big round of applause for my speakers, Wesam Hamada, Lisa Doughten, Malek, Hammoud, Carl, Skau, and Svyatoslav. Senyuta, sorry for the pronunciation, that's quite hard, but thank you all so much for being with us today. It was really engaging to have you all on the stage at Doha Forum. Thank you.